Here's the Babylonian god Tammuz, and as you can see, he's holding a pine cone. So once again, he's a very powerful god from that tradition, and you're seeing the same type of symbolism coming through. Then you go over into Hinduism, the goddess Shiva, the goddess of destruction, the breaking down of the old to purify the way for the new. What does her head look like? What does that hair look like? It's another pineal gland. And you've also got the redundancy with the symbol of the third eye, and you've got the serpent wrapped around her head. The same iconography once again. And it's so powerful in the Hindu tradition that even now it's common practice to wear a symbol of the third eye on your forehead if you're a woman, and they all have these various bindis, as they're called, that they can order and wear. This is, as we go more into more recent gods, the god of drunkenness and revelry, Bacchus. You can see he has the goat-shaped ears here. They're kind of demonic almost looking. And he also has the cloven feet. But then look at this. What's that? There it is again, huh? There's that pine cone. So once again, why do you think alcohol, hard liquor, is called spirits? Think about that for a minute. Because it opens the door to these influences. And the ancient people knew that. That's why they were called spirits. You've ever seen people who get like completely possessed when they're drunk and they just seem different? They seem a lot more negative. Well, negative entities in some cases seem to be able to grab hold through the pineal gland. And so they knew about all this. They knew that drunkenness and revelry opened up the pineal. That's why he's got it on the top of his staff. Dionysus, who is the usher through the underworld, the usher through death and rebirth, he's also got the pineal gland, the pine cone on his staff. So there's the same message yet again. And here's another image of Dionysus with a bigger pine cone. Well, let's not leave out Buddhism. Check that out, right? Same exact thing once again, the hair. That's another symbol of the pineal gland. And even the fact that it looks like a pine cone with the way that they braided their hair. I mean, all this was done deliberately to honor the pine cone. So then there's a quote from the Bible, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light." That's Matthew 6:22. Well, that's pretty weird, huh? Guess how the mainstream Bible scholars interpret this passage I told you yesterday, for those who were here. They say, well, you just have to be single-mindedly focused on God the Father as your salvation. That's why it's one eye. You just want to kind of look at him. This is a single eye, and it makes your whole body full of light. Well, the Bible says God is light, so this is what's going on. It's your hyperdimensional gateway. The third eye, yeah. But surely we say, even though maybe a Bible passage could be interpreted a certain way, it might not mean anything, probably doesn't mean anything. Surely the Vatican wouldn't follow something like this. That'd be silly. There's never any public acknowledgement of it, or do they? Well, check this out. This is the Vatican Square, and this is a gigantic statue of a pine cone. It's the largest statue in the Vatican, anywhere outside, except for this little ball over here, which we're going to look at closer in just a second. Notice the peacocks, which have a very kind of Egyptian feeling to them, like the ibis, right? The Egyptian ibis. It's a very similar type of bird. And what's this all about? What's that look like to you? Aha, that's an open sarcophagus, just like in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. What does the open sarcophagus symbolize in the Great Pyramid? No more death. The transition into spiritual life. Okay? So, this all has to do with, I'm going to start walking a little bit. This all has to do with the knowledge of the higher forces, the sacred geometry. All this stuff focuses on the pineal gland, the pine cone. Now, what do they call this actual part of the Vatican? They call it the Court of the Pine Cone. Okay? How weird is that? But I want to take a look at that little ball, so let's go in closer on it. There it is. That's huge. That's huge. And what's all this? This is like Greek columns, and then you get your saints on the top of the columns here. And here you have, I guess that's called the basilica over there. But you've got this gigantic ball, much bigger than anything else, and it's mirror polished. Well, that again is a symbol of divinity and the Creator. Okay? Well, there's the pine cone, and here's a guy. Look at that. I mean, a man is not even tall enough to reach the bottom of the pedestal of this pine cone. What the heck is the point? If everything that I'm telling you is bullshit and you go home and are like, oh my God, this guy has been smoking some really weird stuff. Okay, fine. If you want to believe that, that's fine, but answer me this. What the hell is that? And why is it there? And why do they care? And why is it in every single ancient culture in the world? It says the same exact thing, and it looks just like a gland. Any of them could have chopped open a head and found this gland in your brain. And they did. Well, this is what's at the bottom of that statue, okay? That's Egyptian cuneiform down there. And the lion, like the Sphinx. This is the Vatican. Is anybody getting a does not compute on this? You got the ibises around the top of the thing, okay? You got this weird mirror ball on the outside of the courtyard. You got this open sarcophagus, like in the Great Pyramid. Do you think maybe that they have a little bit more of an affinity with Egypt than we've been giving them credit for? Do you think that maybe the ancient Templars who designed the cathedrals used the same sacred geometry in the Great Pyramid in order to make those cathedrals so that they would function as consciousness resonators and amplifiers? Using the domed ceiling, using the stained glass windows that have sacred geometry mandalas in them, and using the Gregorian chant, which has the tones of sacred music that then activate your consciousness. This is what's going on. That's the other side. You can see once again the same thing. You have this lion who's there. Well, okay, I guess if we put a cross on the top, it doesn't really count as an obelisk anymore. You know, we can kind of glide on that one. Doesn't work for me. This is very much something out of Egypt. And here's the smoking gun. The actual pontiff himself carries a staff that has a pine cone in the staff. Now, you cannot tell me that all this is an accident. Especially when you understand that the esoteric symbolism of the staff, first of all, you notice it looks like a tree, and that's the central axis of the world tree, right? I don't have a slide for it here, but the world tree is what the ancient people saw when they looked at those nested spheres. You remember the mushroom-looking thing that I showed you before? If you go out into the solar system out of body, you see these they look like umbrellas. And so you see a trunk in the middle, and then it moves out like this into what's that sphere that we're showing you. So that's what they used to think of as a tree. So this symbolizes the world tree. What's the joining point between the world tree of spirit and the physical pontiff, who is the actualized embodiment of spirit? It's the pine cone. So this is showing how the pineal gland, once it's fully awakened, allows you access to the world tree, which is the repository of all spiritual wisdom and knowledge. So, the pineal